Hey there, ICMA community. Thank you so much for your crisis ready questions. Another question, and actually I received a couple questions along the same line, so I'm going to answer it, is, in the context of a long-term crisis, how does the leader of the organization deal not only with the crisis, but also stay focused on their important ongoing responsibilities? How do they keep their organization staff from losing focus on the important normal responsibilities the public relies on them for? Another question along the same lines is also, how do you manage the organization to keep providing day-to-day services and operations when dealing with the crisis taking up time 24/7? These types of crises exist, and nobody said that crisis management was easy. This is one of the challenges that comes with a long-tailed crisis that needs to be proactively managed, over the period of a long period of time. When you dive deep, so in my book, Crisis Ready, Building an Invincible Brand in an Uncertain World, as well as in my online course, when you dive deep into, when you do what I call the deep dive process into each one of your high-risk scenarios, you will identify the types of different scenarios, high-risk scenarios, that this risk might be a factor of. And you can start strategically building out, becoming ready for that now. Some things might include, it depends on the size of your team too. So if you have a designated crisis management team, which you do, you're gonna make sure that there are cycles. So best practice shows that you want cycles of 6 hours per person before the alternate comes in. So rotation of 6 hours at a time is ideal, is best, gives best results for the people managing the crisis and the crisis management as a whole. So you want to build in that resiliency in terms of staff and resources and the time demand and restraints that a long-tailed crisis can present. You also, depending on the structure of your organization and how many members of your team, I often say that you have your crisis management governance structure model, the team of crisis management, but then the rest of the team, to the most extent possible, is going to be responsible for continuing to run business as usual, to the most extent possible, depending on the scenario and depending on the specifics of the situation. But that's also something to look at. Who is responsible for that? What does that look like? Baseline or bottom line is that when you become crisis ready, you understand, you've identified what the most likely high impact types of crises and issues that your organization is most vulnerable to. When you've identified those, you've also done, if you're crisis ready, you've also done a deep dive into each one of those scenarios, which means that you've identified this as being a risk where it is a risk. And by being crisis ready, you then put measures in place to prevent the preventable and be prepared, be ready for the unpreventable. And you can start thinking through this now. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. To learn more about becoming crisis ready and building an invincible brand, visit melissaagnes.com.